and welcome to Ask Dr. Mimi. I'm your host, Dr. Mimi Fatis. Today, I have a very special guest on the show. He is just not any other guest, but he is the potential next president of the Gambia. This man gave a speech today that really inspired me. And if anyone that watched the show today or happened to be on Facebook Live and watch the clips, you will understand why I was touching moved today. Without further introduction, Mr. Mayor Talib Bensouda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you, too, sir. For the people that are watching the show out there, I had your speech today. It was very inspiring and I was moved. Tell us about your experience today in Seattle and how you felt when you were giving out the speech with the support you're getting out from the crowd.
Seattle's second home to me now. It's the fourth consecutive year I've been coming here for political events. Many faces I know, and I'm familiar with the environment. Yeah, today's speech spoke to what Gambians are living through daily and what our aspirations are as a people and what our plans are as a newly formed political party. But I could really see that the audience was receiving it well. We're just planting the seed of our Seattle chapter diaspora, our Seattle diaspora chapter, and I really think there's huge potential in connecting the homeland with the diaspora who are thriving. I feel like a lot of them are disenfranchised and wish they could do more. But Gambia needs to improve structurally and needs to create trust between the government and people in the diaspora. So that's part of the message we were delivering today and presenting UNITE as the alternative.
I love it. You came from a united movement to now a political party the past 7 months. You have been called a phenomenon, the growth you had for the past 7 months, just following your work. How was that experience like, coming from another party to forming your own party and having this great support from your people? How was that experience like for you? I know 7 months is short, but
Right.
I guess, you can let us know about that.
Right. So I think it's a combination of dreamers and builders. So as you can see, Ibrahim is a dreamer, I am a builder. So we complement each other. So of course the reception has been phenomenal. We didn't expect to grow so fast. We didn't expect it to get registered so quick, to be recognized countrywide. Our brand, our emblem, our colors, our name. It's quite the journey. So we know at this rate we are going to soon become the biggest single political party in the Gambia. Not because we think we are special individuals or anything like that. No, I think we are speaking the language people want to hear. We are saying things people are dealing with on a daily basis, and we are speaking to the aspirations of Gambians, especially young people and women. So this is what has caused, I think, the reception to be so outstanding.
Oh, beautiful. Talk about inspiration. I have another question for you. Every leader have a story before they become a politician. As a psychologist, I often say that our childhood experience shapes who we are today, the decision we make. And looking back to your childhood, what experience and value influenced you when it comes to helping people, and also what shaped the leader that you are today?
I think as a child, I had to struggle for everything I had in terms of achievement. And that struggle basically tested me, and forced me to tap into an inner strength. So I think as a personality, I've always been, a social butterfly. I've always been somebody who liked interacting with people. I think that gave me emotional intelligence. However, as a worker or achiever, I struggled to find my talents, and I had to apply myself. So I work hard for everything I set my eyes on. Like Ibrahim was talking about, I'm always seen as the underdog or the outsider, and I fight my way in. I fight my way to the top. So I am a fighter. I don't seem like it, but I have grit. So in my university days, I had to paint
Wow.
to make a living. I painted for a company called College Pro Painters. From there, I started my first business, a painting franchise. I had 12 employees at the age of 19.
Wow.
So I had to struggle then. Then I worked in. I saw the truck the other day. I had nostalgia. It was the 1-800 got junk.
Oh, 800 got
Yeah, I worked for 1-800 got junk
Wow.
when I was in Canada. I worked as a navigator then as a driver. It's good money, but hard work. 13-hour shifts, 4 days a week. 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week. So, I had to work very, very, very hard. I worked in recycling. I worked as a mechanic, a maintenance technician. I did cold calling. I did experiential marketing. So I think those experiences molded me into the leader I am today. So just like I approach everything in life, I go to the smallest atom, the smallest molecule. I start from the grassroots and build up. So that's how I've won all my elections and worked even as a mayor. And I believe in it, because you learn a lot when you deal with people directly and interface with the problems.
Absolutely.
So that has shaped me to who I am today.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for it.
It's a tenacity for me working for 800 John and now seeing YK, KMC, this Cardiff Municipal Council has been so successful. The city is cleaner. Now I see where that's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. My experience with 1-800 got junk introduced me to transfer stations, recycling facilities. It taught me a lot about waste management and how to build a comprehensive system when you approach waste solutions. So it gave me insights into city management because I worked with the city of Mississauga. But I think generally, we've done a lot. It's just an approach. I believe politics, just like life, is a science to a certain degree. It's a formula. It's just, are you willing to implement and work hard for it?
I love it. Let me just go back again to childhood. The young Talib, the 10-year-old Talib, if you're watching yourself right now, what message do you have for yourself? The 10-year-old you.
Go hard, never look back. You'll make mistakes, but you always get up. Mistakes make you stronger. I never regret. I have very few regrets in my life. I always feel like, what you ever go through is just a learning experience. And the harder it is, the higher you rise. If you can, pick yourself up.
That's beautiful. That's
I believe
beautiful.
in that. When I was 10, I think one of my friends reminded me. His name is Osja. We used to sit at the traffic light shell. By then it was a shell.
I remember traffic light.
So we would wake up for Fajr prayers, and then after Fajr prayers, we would sit at the shell from 6 a.m. literally to 8 a.m. on Saturdays usually, until the sun comes up, just talking about life at that age. And he reminded me. He said once I told him, "Os, I promise you, I'm going to be president." And now when he recounted that conversation, I remember. I told him, "Oh my God, you're so right."
Oh my God.
And I totally forgot about that moment until today.
Think about the power of manifestation and the power of speaking words to yourself.
Yes.
Wow. So, Mr. Mayor, from both political and, of course, psychological perspective,
Right.
how do you balance the emotional need of your citizens, practical demands of governments, and what have you learned about human behavior, trust, and community during your time as a mayor? And how will that influence you as a president of the Gambia?
Did you say emotional needs of the citizens?
Yes.
Oh,
Because we're talking about psychology.
all right.
I'm a journalist, but I'm also very involved when it comes to human services.
Right.
And also the importance of knowing people, not just seeing someone and saying hello to them,
Right.
but investing in the people.
So I think depending on the society, the hierarchy of needs are different. Here, it's a developed economy. People are mostly higher income than the rest of the world. Emotional issues are high up in the agenda. Depression is high up in the agenda. Mental wellness is high up in the agenda. Unfortunately for us, survival is at face value. You know, people think of what they're going to have for lunch or dinner, or how will they pay their children's school fees. So there's very little room to look at mental health, and to look at, how do we avoid issues like depression. The causes are very different in Gambia than here. So for us, like I said, as a party, our number one agenda is to end that cycle of scarcity. How do we end poverty? That's why I'm a big fan of Chairman Mao, the Chinese Communist Party. He set out to end poverty, and he did just that. So I think that would be a big achievement for Gambia, which has more than 50% poverty rate, and the urban poor are suffering more than even the rural poor. So I think that would be something that any leader should focus on, and then future leaders can focus on things like mental health, awareness, things like
now
that.
we focus more on the survival first.
Yes, because they're interlinked.
Drain.
Our mental health issues and depression and emotional issues are all linked to poverty, for the most part.
Yeah, it is.
So if you end that, people would be better off.
Yeah, that is so profound. Mr. Mayor, like I said, when it comes to being a journalist and also a psychologist, I'm deeply interested, of course, in psychological health of the nation, of the well-being. You've already mentioned that, right? If elected as a president, what kind of a national mindset would you set or cultivate for the Gambia?
Well, I think the Gambian mindset, of course, needs to be, re-engineered for many reasons. I don't think poverty is a state. I think poverty is a mindset. I don't think wealth is something that is given. I think wealth is just a system. It's a culture. And I see that Gambia, for example, there's a culture that we are so used to that is detrimental to our prosperity. And there's a mindset that we are addicted to that basically impairs our vision on how we can prosper. So introducing that mindset will be one of the biggest challenges any president can, inject in its people. It will probably take a generation, but it needs to start somewhere. You need to get it going. So I spoke in Atlanta. I said, look, if you look at the South in the U.S., there's so many uneducated whites. They call them the poor whites. Some say rednecks. I don't know if that's appropriate. But there's so many uneducated people. But then you look at the environment they live in. Why is it more organized? Why is it working? Why is there better healthcare for many of these places? And if you go to some places in Africa that are more affluent or maybe more educated, there's not that same sort of facilities. It's because it's not wealth and order and prosperity is not necessarily always linked to education. It's most of the time linked to a culture or a way of life. So I hate to use this example, but coming late.
We're talking about that today.
It's an issue.
This was
so coming late never happens. I'm Gambian. When I know Gambians are going to be at the program, there's competition about who comes last. You don't want to be the first
We need to do better.
But then when it's a program where it's non-Gambians, like let's say it's an Asian summit or it's a business meeting in London or something like that, and majority are going to be white people. You know if you're not there by 5, when they say they're going to be there, you might be the last there, and they will continue their program with or without you. And they would leave when they're supposed to leave. So I think it's an African problem, because not necessarily just an African problem, but I think it's a developing world problem. But it's more intense with small countries, where people feel the need to be seen. Small countries generate big egos. Nobody wants to be the first. Everybody wants to be the star. But it's something that needs to change. things have to start on time, end on time, because time is valuable.
Absolutely.
You know, today I used the example at the mosque. You know, I went to a mosque and I realized the khutbah of the imam was 30 minutes. Prayer was on time. They ended and everybody left orderly because they have to get back to work.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the same scenario back home, it's different. You know?
Wow.
Sometimes the imam can get carried away and khutbah past his time. You know, and then when people start frowning, he'll say, if this was football, nobody would frown. You know, so I think it's just like I said, you know, a cultural issue that needs to be fixed. So that just not it's not just about time; it's about just a general way of life of doing things. Even maintenance is a culture. You know, in Gambia, you see people buy new machinery all the time, but they fall apart very quickly because maintenance is not a culture. You see a beautiful building built, go back there in 10 years, you'll be shocked. And here sometimes I go into a building and people say, oh, this building is 100 years old. I'm like, what? You know, it's so well managed. You know, you wouldn't even know. You couldn't even tell.
Wow.
You know, so maintenance is a culture. Coming on time is a culture. You know, ethics. You know, doing things the right way, whether people look at you or are not looking at you, is a culture.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. It's such an honor. You had a long day today. And just sitting here talking to us means a lot to me. And I really appreciate your time. Just one more last question to you. The future Mr. President Talib Bensouda.
Right.
You know, what message do you have for your future self when it comes to from where you started to forming the United Party?
Right.
What message do you have for your future self?
The message I would have is never forget what you set out to do when you started. You know, and never get carried away with whatever position you have or whatever limelight there is or perks there are. Always stay focused on why you set out, because at the end of the day, it's going to end, and what would be left is your legacy.
Absolutely.
That would be the message.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. For the viewers that are watching this show, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in and watching a special edition of Ask Dr. Mimi. And this was Mr. Mayor Talib Bensouda. Such an honor, sir.
Thank you.